So this is how the UFC should book UFC Africa, in my opinion. This is going to be a 5-fight main card. Starting off with the first matchup, we have got Muhammad Usman, the brother of Kamaru Usman, facing up against the heavyweight legend in Andrei Arlovski. Now, yes, Muhammad Usman does have a fight booked for March against Mick Parkins. I think that's who he's fighting in March. And obviously, Andrei Arlovski is just coming off that loss against Waldo Cortez Acosta. But I feel like it's in Africa. Muhammad Usman, he is Nigerian. He's going to have a lot of backing. This is the way the UFC can build Muhammad Usman up as a star. Have him on opening the main card of UFC Africa. I'm repping the Nigeria shirt. Have him open this card against a legend like Andrei Arlovski, who is above him in the rankings. Usman is sitting at 22nd in the world in the UFC rankings, and Andrei Arlovski is currently sitting at number 18. I think this would be a great matchup, even if Usman does lose his next matchup against Mick Parkins, which I think will be a tough matchup for him. I think UFC Africa, I don't know when they will do this, maybe I don't know, near the end of the year maybe? I don't know. Something like that, but anyway, to open up the main card, Muhammad Usman versus Andrei Arlovski, in my opinion, would be a great way to start that card. Then next up, for the light heavyweight division, I'm trying to put a lot of guys who actually are African on this card. I think it makes the most sense, obviously. So every single fighter on the main card will have someone from Africa in it. So then next fight up in the card would be Kennedy. I can't pronounce his second name, I'm not gonna lie. You can see him on screen here. No disrespect to the guy, just I'm shit with names, to be honest. But he is fighting OSP here in March also, I believe. Who I think he should fight after that matchup for UFC Africa is Ryan Spann. Now, Ryan Spann is a bit up the rankings from him. Kennedy is number 15 currently. Ryan Spann is sitting at number 12, although he is on a 2-fight losing streak, losing to Anthony Smith by decision and Nikita Krylov. So I think this would be another great matchup. You can build another African star here in Kennedy. I wish I could say a second name, but I just can't. Have him on the card, up from Muhammad Usman, Andrei Arlovski, because I feel like the Usman second name is a pretty big name in terms of MMA, and Andrei Arlovski is a big name in the world of MMA, so that will be a good baseline fight to start, in my opinion. Then you move up to the light heavyweight division, which would be Kennedy, can't say a second name, against Ryan Spann. I think that'll be a great matchup. Both guys do possess power, so I feel like someone would get knocked out in that matchup, and it would be a really fun matchup in my opinion. Then we go on up the card too. This is where these next 3 fights are going to be the main selling point of this card, in my opinion. You've got Manel Kape versus Kai Kara-France. Now, this was meant to happen on the Adesanya Sean Strickland card, but Kai Kara-France had to pull out due to an injury. Manel Kape was rebooked to fight again against Nicolau in their rematch, but he missed weight, so he'd been taken off that card. It kind of fucked up the Manel hype. There is bad blood between these guys. Manel Kape is from Africa, and I don't know how close Africa is to New Zealand, to be honest. I feel like that's a shorter fight than what it would be to go from New Zealand to Africa, but again, I don't know. But either way, this is a fight that has a lot of bad blood. A lot of people do want to see this matchup. It would be a great striking matchup. Would generate a lot of hype and build for this card. I definitely think it makes the most sense. They're going to do it at some point, so why not make it on UFC Africa? That's just my opinion. In terms of who I think would win that matchup, I'm going to have to back Manel Kape to win that matchup, in my opinion. But either way, it would be a great striking matchup for the fans. Then we move on to the co-main event. Now, the co-main event, I have 2... Do I have 2? I'm just going to go with 1. I've got 2 things that could happen. I'll go with the one that I don't really want to see, but I wouldn't. It's alright if it happens, which would be Kamaru Usman versus Shavkat Rakhmonov in the welterweight division. Now, Usman has to be on this card, obviously. He's one of the bigger names in terms of the African fighters. You could argue, I mean, there's 3 of them now, but anyway, he is one of the biggest names from Nigeria. Him and his brother both on this card would be massive for them. But yeah, if he is going to go back down to welterweight, I feel like having him against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, I know these guys train together, but really, Usman has done majority of his recent camps, I believe, out with Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje, so you can't really say there's that much loyalty between them. But that's not the matchup I really want to see. What I want to see co-main event this card is Kamaru Usman versus Robert Whittaker in the middleweight division. Usman did make his middleweight debut, obviously, against Hamza Chimaev, where he arguably should have got a draw, in my opinion, and he hasn't been active since then. Then you've got Robert Whittaker, who is coming off that win against Paulo Costa. He did take a bit of damage around the face, but nothing that I don't think would have him out for a very, very long time. These are two pound for pound legends of the sport. This would be a great matchup, in my opinion. Make it 5 rounds. It has to be 5 rounds. Usman versus Whittaker. How's Usman going to cope with the speed of Robert Whittaker? How is Whittaker's chin going to hold up against the power of Kamaru Usman? How is Usman going to look in the middleweight division in his second fight with a full camp? How is Robert Whittaker going to be able to handle the wrestling of Usman, etc., etc.? It'd be a great matchup, in my opinion. I do think Whittaker will probably be a bit too fast for Usman, in my opinion. I feel like Usman would really have trouble getting around the left hand of Robert Whittaker. However, if Usman is able to land on Whittaker's chin, he goes out cold, in my opinion. So it will be a great matchup to see. Like I said, 2 pound for pound legends would really make the card, in my opinion. Make this the co-main event. It's a big fight, the co-main event, UFC Africa, in my opinion. And obviously the main event has to be Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. I feel like if you have this fight main event any other card that isn't in Africa, since they're not on UFC 300, you're kind of wasting it, in my opinion. This would be, not only would this be a massive fight in Africa, just in general, this is a mega matchup. The bad blood, we've already seen it. Adesanya's looking to make his return. Dricus du Plessis now has the belt. It's perfect timing. It's perfect for the UFC to go to UFC Africa. Make it happen. This has to main event UFC Africa. Now, who I think would win this matchup? I do think Israel Adesanya emotionally is a bit too invested in this matchup, and I feel like that could cost him. However, stylistically, you have to go for Israel Adesanya. I think Israel Adesanya would do a great job of really damaging the lead leg of Dricus du Plessis and countering Dricus du Plessis on the feet. However, in saying that, I do think Dricus du Plessis would be able to get Israel Adesanya down. One thing that I think is underrated in Dricus du Plessis' game is his ground control. When he gets you there, he does have vicious ground and pound. He is aggressive with submissions, and he can just control you on the mat. Not perfect. I don't know why I said that, but he can control you. He's got great ground control. Is essentially what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, that is how I think the UFC should book UFC Africa. Comment below which fights you would like to see on the card. The first 2 fights in the main card, yes, they're not massive names, but they're both from Africa. I think they have to be on the main card. And then the last 3 fights with the Manel Cap, Kai Car France, Whittaker Usman, or Usman Shavkat, and then obviously the main event being Israel Adesanya, Dricus du Plessis, which that main event alone is one of the biggest fights the UFC can make to date, in my opinion. But yeah, let me know your opinions on the card, and do you think the UFC will go to Africa this year? And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. It does really help out, and I'll see you again in the next one.